But yes, let's look at Mr. Herba here. So Morocco, that's cool. We don't have much information to go off of, but oh no, we do. He responded. So in 2017, started with Blender because it was the only 3D software to work on my low-end PC, learning the fundamentals for 2 years. HD to specialize. I like to see the bigger picture, so environments is the choice. Worked on my portfolio until now. Where do I want to go? Currently, my goal is to reach a level of a junior AAA environment artist. And for feedback, I'm looking to what my strengths and weaknesses are. What should I focus to improve on? And is there anything I should remove? And finally, what are you working on? At this time, I'm working on my sculpting skills, mainly rocks. Also, I will retexture the Ford Crown car shown in my first scene. Cool. Let's check this out. Excuse me. It's been a long day. You guys get up early and then just keep going. Sizen, how you doing? I gotta chill out sometimes. You gotta chill out. Remember, you can. It's calm. Everything's calm. Um. So those street lights are super bright. I mean, I know this is last year, so we won't comment on those too much. Fire alarm went off at 5. Well, Ollie. My normal alarm went off at 6. But yeah, I would say with this vehicle, it's very simple. But I think for your first scene, at least from what your portfolio is showing is your first scene, it's pretty cool just getting a vehicle in there. I think going forward, I'll be curious to see where your modeling gets to and understanding materials. Because I think what it is the modeling isn't too low end. Honestly, it's more of the materials letting down the modeling, right? So highlighting areas and getting your shaders to look good for car paint, and then definitely like that albedo and roughness pass, and getting metals where you need them. I guess the tires feel a little strange; they feel a little flat on the sides, but it just looks like an early vehicle from someone new to modeling vehicles. It's better than I could do. I'm terrible at vehicles, so there's that. This is a very modular building. I guess the reasoning being that there's a bunch of houses out here, so these are all built with that same kit. It's a huge kit. What I would suggest doing is if you were going to make something like this again, see if you can do the same thing with half of this. Because at the end of the day, if you can do it with less, that'll be even better for streaming, performance, and like in a professional scene or in professional context. That's like everything. The other thing is if it's open world versus like single player, like smaller spaces, like a very guided type of game where everything is pretty close to you, like 100 meters or closer. You could go semi-modular, but as you go into a more open world space, you're going to have to come up with solutions for either these smaller pieces combining and turning into single things, or you just need to build them bigger, like build the pieces larger. But yeah, I think with all the materials that you have in here, I would probably isolate it down to like a small presentation of 1 or 2 slides of all of your materials. Especially with these, they're mainly color variations. And if that's the case, you could probably shrink them all down to a single image because you don't want to have the scrolling fatigue, right? If we go to this war hospital scene now, so this one is last year. Whoa, that's a statement in the middle there. Hello. There's a lot of details here. Some like, what are those are those shells on the ground? Like shell casings? Holy cow, look at those feet dangling. Wow, dude. There's some this is intense. I would say that the noise that you have going on here, this sounds crazy. I'm going to tell you you should do this. You should get like a white piece of board and just dip your hand in black paint and just actually do this and then take a picture of it. Use that as the mask for your, you know, just because it'll be stronger than trying to either paint it or type it out. Yeah, I think it would be much stronger. But so you've got some asset breakdowns here as well. Lots of orthographic views. I think it would be best to try and get all of these into one image, or like what you've got going on here. The other thing that stuck out to me is you can see all the little debris on the ground. That piece that you have, having more variety of that type of debris, where it's like you have the evenly distributed pieces, then you have like maybe some pieces that are kind of against a wall and then kind of distribute outwards. Maybe a little bit of a pile. That way you can change it up and kind of place them in more of a compositional sense. So they don't look like, because what they look like here, if that's what these are, is it kind of looks like it's just part of the material. And it might be. Let me just keep scrolling here. Also, pay attention to PBR values and make sure that your materials, the roughness is reading for the type of material it is, as well as the albedo color itself not going outside of the PBR range, whether it be too saturated and too bright or too dark. You can go really desaturated, but just make sure you don't go too dark or too bright or too saturated. Man, that's intense. That it doesn't feel like there's a head there, or like it's around the neck. If I want to comment on that. But oh man, there's a video too. Your lighting needs to be rebuilt, just FYI. I'm just gonna. Oh yeah, you're using an FPS as well. Oh wow, it's moving. Oh my gosh. Okay, so let's get past the body there. I have no idea how Twitch reacts to that. I assume not really, because there's horror games. Man, I want to get to that shot where there. It's like right this. So this fog is strangely lit. Like it doesn't look like it's being affected by the lighting. So it's like glow, like it's emitting light. You know what I mean? So getting your fog to match. I mean, how you doing, man? Getting your fog or your smoke to match the environment is just going to feel more natural. And it can be the absence of light or like it becoming darker that would really help get that kind of feeling. The other thing is double checking your scale and making sure that the space makes sense for like the size of a bed when you stand next to it. Dragging a character in and just having context is everything. That'll really help when it comes to that type of stuff. Oh, this is pretty cool. 18th century Moroccan castle. Nice. Oh yeah, so it's really cool. So I think the things that stick out to me the most is the edges, and like those things can really read. You're stalking my feedback sessions. Nice. I'm down. It's cool. You can stalk. The reading the edges as very geometric, and like the flag being really stiff. Those all like lend to you going like, oh, that's okay. That's geometry. I understand how this is built. Okay, that edge is a little softer, so it must have a bevel or two, but it's still, you can read the geometry. The more you can break that up, the better it will maintain the look of being a scene with lots of detail. So it could be simple things like this top edge here, taking like 30 minutes and just adding some geo cuts and like offsetting some of the stones so they're not quite perfect. Imperfections are like everything when it comes to that type of stuff. And like the text on the top here, getting that normal map to kind of go through that, like you have to understand how the text is there. Is it part of the stone? Was it carved into the stone? Or was it left where it's at and then the stone was carved away to leave the text sticking out? Either way, the stone line, like these lines, I would imagine need to cut through that text. So those are the types of details. Like this also feels like it's floating, which could be just the sense of like ambient occlusion, just not helping connect it, or like shadow resolution is just not helping you connect the object to object surfaces. Like these breakdowns are pretty cool with the wireframes. I think they're a good idea to do. I'd be really curious to know, like, that must be a tiling material, a tiling texture. This is unique. How are you using those, showing the UVs and how you're texturing things, as well as like showing your roughness and your albedo? That really will give me the ability to understand, like, okay, is this like, do you understand PBR for metal and what albedo colors need to look like if it's that type of metal or if it's this type of material? What's your roughness values look like? So, and then, yeah, you could see like these, that's really high poly. And maybe in the video it's actually moving. If it's moving in a video, that could help. This material is not too bad. But yeah, it's definitely getting away from the simplicity in your geometry and adding just a few layers of detail in the geometry, as well as like in the way it's textured, just to like ground things and make them feel more real. Like for example, the wall, where the wall meets the ground, even just in the shader, if you built a gradient so that you can tell like, oh, like the dust from the ground just kind of kicks up on that bottom half of the wall, so it tends to be more towards the color value of the color and value of the terrain. And then really trying to bridge the connection between the gate and the wall, as well as like I was saying with the text and the bricks themselves or the stones. But yeah. Use lumen, software ray tracing. So I think with your lumen, yeah, see, it looks grounded here. That's really interesting. So it might be the angle of the light, or how much you're letting I don't know if it's, correct me if I'm wrong, but if it's the penumbra of the light source causing the shadow to soften as it gets further from the object. In the top image, it looked really soft, so it was hard to understand the scale, and it might just be because we're far away, so the resolution dips. Yeah, soft radius can be used. Yeah, and you can see it's like the light's passing behind it, so it's hard to make sense of how things are connected. Oh, it's the same scene. Oh man, dude, this feels really nice. So you were saying that you were using mega scans for, what was it? Was the foliage? I use speed tree for trees and buildings. Only grass and landscape textures are mega scans. Oh, interesting. So these are, you put those together. Torches are cool. That is a very bright moon. And the temperature outside feels strange, but I don't know. Getting that, at least for this presentation, if you were to put like a spotlight there, just to get a directional shadow, or like a box light to just get a directional shadow from the character, I think would help a lot, just with grounding the character. And then again, there's some weird, like this almost looks like a green gas. Let's see here. Yeah, see, these light sources are really helping ground everything. The shadows are very light, though. I guess I would, like, it's like your ambient is too bright, maybe. Ooh, in motion. And everything in motion just feels so good. Yeah, and I think it's just material breakdowns. I don't think you need to add all these images if you're just doing like a different lighting thing. It should be a lighting steady. Before we go to this next one, I would take the Unreal Engine logo and just like take the Unreal part and just put it in like the corner or something, or put it somewhere that just unifies your thumbnails. Because right now the Unreal logo is like everywhere. It's like on the far left, it's in the center, it's kind of left. They're all different sizes. The Unity one, like I'm sure there's a Unity logo that's been updated. Like you could just put like the Unity symbol somewhere. I've seen ones where people put it right up top here and then put a little bit of a shadow, but just unifying your thumbnails will do a lot. It'll do a whole lot. Decided to practice foliage and sculpting. Ended up with this. I like how you're like, I ended up with this. This is just kind of where it ended. This is where we're at now. um, let's see here. So if you've got rocks, I'd be careful about putting grass on them. Unless there's like soil to back it up, you know, some dirt. Nice, getting some sculpting going on. Don't hesitate to just go way higher in your poly counts. It's not the best. I mean, we all start somewhere, so don't worry too much about it. There's this shape, which I'm assuming, I'm gonna guess that you push that shape in and then dynamesh them together, and then worked with that. It's totally okay for that, for you to not dynamesh those together, or work on a rock and then use it on itself and pushing them into each other to create larger shapes. You could dynamesh those, or you could keep them separate from each other, and then in the low poly, combine them for the low poly, and then you can bake that, and you'll get a much cleaner, like more natural edge to it, or natural, less of a melted together transition and more of like a harsh transition. Low poly rock texture to high poly normal. Baked in Substance Painter. Nice getting some edge wear on there as well. So with the poly count of these and the size that you're using them at, like this one here, this should be at least like 4,000 or 5,000 triangles. Just because the sheer size of it warrants that it needs that type of that detail. And I mean, in today's world, you could go up to like 15,000 if you wanted to. As long as it has the details that require that amount of geometry in order to show that type of information. And yeah, I think with your grass, I would try and tell more of a story with where your grass is positioned. And thinking about, it looks like you're doing it a little bit, but areas where the grass is taller and shorter, that's one way to really think about like how your grass grows, or making it look more natural. So for example, if the grass is really close to the tree or close to the rock, you can think about it as kind of being protected. So those tend to grow higher, longer, healthier possibly, but like but then as you go away from objects, they can tend to be shorter, especially if it becomes a pretty traveled area. They just kind of the grass isn't as protected. But I like the patchiness of what's going on here. It's just, it feels strange with the grass on tops of the rocks. The thing I would say about the trees is instead of, it feels like maybe you were looking at trees, but look at the species of trees and identify what makes that tree that type of tree. Because each tree species will have a type of language, right? And I can't imagine that the language that they're speaking to you is going to be very broad. Like, there's probably not very many categories, but understanding what type of tree it is will tell you what type of language it would speak, and the way that the branches are positioned, the way the leaves are shaped, and how they clump together. And following those, it's like following a rule set. You follow that rule set, you're going to get a more natural looking tree of the type that you're trying to go for. Just making up a tree is like guaranteed danger. But yeah, I mean, this is pretty cool to see. I could see the progression. I think improving on your modeling and understanding your materials. I know that you're redoing a vehicle, but you're also making environments. I would look at seeing if you want to specialize more in foliage, or if you wanted to like build environments, because like in today's world, you could just build environments and all the foliage could be downloaded at this point. And as long as you're telling people that's what you're doing and where they're coming from, it's totally cool. But yeah, because at the end of the day, if you're an environment artist, you're building spaces, you're telling stories, you're focusing on composition and lighting and storytelling. But cool. Awesome. Thank you for sharing your portfolio.